Good morning, everybody, and welcome to PSG, Professional Service Group of Mercer County. And of course, happy Aloha Friday. I just enjoy celebrating Aloha Friday each Friday, and I have the privilege of sharing Aloha Friday with you. I'm wearing my red Hawaiian shirt today, and so one of my favorites, along with all the others that I wear, those are my favorites too. And so welcome to our virtual meeting. And in addition to being Happy Aloha Friday, we were talking about going to and from New York. Today is National Hot Pastrami Sandwich Day. And so some of the best delis are the New York delis, and they always seem to have good pastrami and good corned beef and good everything else. So if you are so in the mood, you may want to have a hot pastrami sandwich. Of course, another good place in the Edison area is Harold's. One sandwich will feed your whole family. That's just really a place to go visit if you haven't been there. So celebrate Hot Pastrami Sandwich Day. The Professional Service Group of Mercer County, we are a group that is here for you, anybody that is in any kind of career transition. And it doesn't really matter why you've chosen to update and change your career right now. It could be that someone made the decision for you, like a former employer, and you've been let go from your current position. That's happened to me twice in my career. Could be you're taking your own career in your own hands and setting your own direction, and you need the time to focus on doing that. A lot of people like to do that as well. You know, we go around once in life, and sometimes if we have the opportunity to do something we really love, we take that opportunity. So kudos to those who do that. We are here to help provide information, guidance, certainly support to anybody that is in any career transition for any reason. We have lots of resources that can be helpful to you. We do have our LinkedIn group, so if you are not yet a member of our LinkedIn group, please join. It is called PSG of Mercer County. There are almost 1,700 members. It's about 1696 or 7. So if you want to be round number 1,700, if you're not yet a member, please join, and maybe you'll be that lucky 1,700.
What's the gift? What do I get as a prize for that?
You get a recognition. I will let you know that you are number 1,700. Yeah, beyond that, no, the gift is yours of, you know, the benefits you can reap from being a member of our group, of course, any other group. Members do share articles of interest, sometimes job leads, interesting posts, links to other groups, all sorts of activity is reported in our group. We are blessed with an active membership in our LinkedIn group. So maybe you've got a very interesting email about a terrific job that just doesn't apply to you. It's not part of your background. You may want to copy that out of your email and paste it and share it with others. Our LinkedIn group is only for our members, people that have been to at least one of our in-person meetings. And the reason why is we're just trying to keep the name collectors out, the list collectors, people that join groups only for their own benefit. And we do check about once a week of who's requested, and every once in a while we'll get someone who's, you know, from a foreign country or across the country who clearly has not been to our group, but looking only to collect members, and we're trying to minimize that so we're not bombarded with spam messages. But what's nice is because we are all members of the PSG of Mercer County, there's a good chance that as you connect to someone or reach out to someone to ask a question and they are in our group, because they're sensitive to job seekers, there's a good chance that they will indeed reply to you and give you a response. A lot of times people have complained that when they try and make connections, they don't get good response time. So there's a probably better than average chance when it's a group like ours, you'll get that response. In addition, we have our website, psgofmercercounty.org. You are certainly all welcome to go visit our website. Our website has over 120 pages of content, so it is certainly more than a landing page. We have links to lots of other groups and locations and resources in our resources tab. We also have a link right on every page on the right side. We have a link to our YouTube channel. And our YouTube channel started almost 2 years ago when we went virtual, and very appreciative that most of our presenters have allowed us to record our presentations each week, and we post those on our YouTube channel. We have about 83 or 84 videos from the last 22 or so months. So yeah, please go check out our YouTube channel. And by the way, you can also subscribe to our YouTube channel. You just go to the YouTube channel, and when you're on it, you hit the subscribe button. And then that way you'll get notified as we post videos almost every week that we're posting. So all you have to do is go to our website. On the right side, there's a link for the YouTube channel, or if you get our weekly email, the link is there as well. So go check out some of our prior presentation topics. And every once in a while, someone will ask, hey, what was the name of the person who presented this particular topic? Or are there any topics on, and then they're interested, and I can direct them, and I'm happy to do so. So go check out our YouTube channel, go check out our website for the 120 pages of content that we have. In just a moment, I will introduce Paul Cecala, our presenter today. Paul's program is going to be very interactive. So Paul is going to be really giving us direction on managing our microphones. For the most part, you can keep yourself unmuted and unmiked. The only thing I'll ask, be a little cautious. If you have background noise, or if you're doing a lot of typing at your keyboard and you have strong fingers, keep yourself on mute during those times to minimize any accidental interaction that way. There's no snow blowers out today, no leaf blowers, so there shouldn't be too much of that type of interruption. But Paul is making this a very interactive presentation, and he's going to want your input. And if there's any additional contact that you want to have with us, you can use the chat. And the chat is a button in the upper right corner. Kind of looks a little bit like that. I know that's an awful picture, but it's a circle with a tab. And on the upper right corner. And you can also put comments or questions in chat if you prefer not to be unmuted. And Paul and I will be monitoring the chat as well. And by the way, I have these. These are my go-to-meeting flashcards. And I have these for emergencies when people can't connect properly. A lot of times their microphone is muted and whatever, and I have to try and communicate with them. So I use these for Zoom and whatever when I'm on these. So if you're hosting a lot of meetings, you may want to have your own go-to-meeting or virtual meeting flashcards. And good tip. So you learn lots of things here at PSG of Mercer County. Okay, so PSG of Mercer County is just very pleased to welcome back Paul Cecala. Paul Cecala is a certified global career development facilitator, a work search author, and founder of Cecala Career Consultants. He has been coaching since 1999 and has assisted over 3,000 people in either changing careers or starting their professional lives. He specializes in creating a project plan for your job search. He is often recognized for his strong listening skills and ability to help his clients find work fast. He has been commended for his networking skills, interview techniques, and resume writing prowess. Paul has helmed the adult continuing professional education programs for Fairleigh Dickinson University and the County College of Morris. Additionally, he has worked in workforce development through his local Chamber of Commerce and One Stop Career Center. Prior to career coaching, Paul spent 15 years in corporate aviation, working for Flight Safety International, KC Aviation, Jet Aviation, and ending as Vice President of Aircraft Charter Sales for Atlantic Aviation. Paul has his BS in psychology from Florida Institute of Technology. Prior to his GCDF certification, he was certified by the 5 O'Clock Club. He lives in Morris County, New Jersey with his husband and teenage son. PSG of Mercer County is very pleased to welcome one of our very favorite career coaches, Paul Cecala.
Thanks, Dave. Our presentation today is the evolving employment model, managing your career in the ongoing COVID economy. And, I used to call this the changing employment model, managing your career in the next COVID economy, or I forget exactly, but we had to change it because COVID is not going away anytime soon. I'm just a little distracted by somebody's fire alarm. I hope you're going to be okay.
And Paul, also start the slideshow in full screen mode. We're seeing it in designer mode. So
nope, I don't want to do that, and I'll show you why.
That's fine.
But thank you for noticing. So what I can do, though, is make it a little bigger. Let's do that. So we're going to talk about what's going on in employment today. And this is a pretty new presentation for me. I've done it a few times, and I'm finding now that I'm getting comfortable with it, I want to change it up. So today we're going to do it a little bit different than I've done in the past. Scott Boudreau, you'll recognize the change because you've seen it before. But let's see how it goes. What we're going to do is I'm going to pose a question. I'd like to get your feedback on that question and also share with you some of my thoughts and ideas and research on that question. So for example, our first question is, what trends are you observing in the business world today? What's happening in the way of work, right? And specifically looking at it through the lens of the person who's unemployed, what are we seeing happening in the world of work today? And at any point, anyone has a comment, just chime in, please. I can't see you at the moment due to the way my screen is set up, so please just feel free to chime in, and Dave will chime in and call on people if you've put questions in the chat or if I can't see your hand raised or whatever. So what are some of the things you all are seeing that's happening in the unemployment today and in the world of work today? Anybody didn't hear about the Great Resignation? Right? And what does that mean? And what I'm hearing about the resignation is that it's really more of a shuffle than a resignation. What's happening is, okay, Nancy, more jobs are starting out as contract positions. Yep. More remote working, Cecily. Yep. People want to work from home. Absolutely, James. And I'll tell you, that's more and more important. And some of those you can see are included in some of the things I've talked about. The shuffle here, you know, where people were talking about everybody's resigning, when you look at some of the more customer-facing roles, yes, there's been a lot of resignation and not a lot of people coming back into those roles. But when you look at some of more of the professional roles, people are leaving one job to go to another. And so there's really just a shuffle happening. You know, the grass is greener on the other side of the street. And so am I in the place where it's going to be best for me, right? Jim Delcourt, on every interview I'm asked about my experience working remotely. So that is a big issue, right? People are all wanting remote work. They're all wanting to work in a way that is giving them flexibility, right? Hybrid work is, and hybrid meaning, do I go into the office or not? Or hybrid meaning, do I have to work a straight 9 to 5? Or could I maybe work 7 to noon or 2, take the afternoon off to go to the kids' ball game and then come back and work 7 to 9 in the evening? Or as some people have said, I'm doing a lot more work with foreign nationals and I'm on their time zone. So when I have meetings with India, it's first thing in the morning. When I have meetings with Asia or Eastern Asia, it's late in the evening. And I'm there during their business day, right? So the flexibility in staffing and an ability to change what our habits are is something that a lot of employers or employees are looking for. What else on this list stands out to some of you? A lot of people talking about contract work or the gig economy, and I'm going to talk about that some more later on as well. Anyone else? Feel free to unmute and talk.
Yeah, I think the supply chain issues with you know, not being able to get things and the whole supply chain has been a big thing.
And you know what's happening with supply chain is really interesting too. It's actually bringing more business, more jobs onshore. Employers, in order to shore up their supply chain, are looking at ways they can do more in the United States where they can control their supply chain, mitigate that risk so that they're not dependent on not only foreign countries and the whims of politics, but also the whims of the more extreme weather that's causing issues with ships toppling in the seas or being delayed because of high seas and the strong storms delaying flights and those kinds of things. What else stands out?
Well, one aspect that is becoming prevalent is that stability or longevity is becoming the exception. So movement, we are almost all free agent now.
We're all free agents now. You know, you're absolutely right, Jean. I read an article just the other day from Power Wow, I think it was, and I referenced it a little bit later on here, where they were saying that the gig economy has grown by 38 or 39% just in this past year, and that it grew equally or more the year prior. And so, in fact, I'm working on a grant where they've contracted with a company who does nothing but micro internships, where they contract with an employer to get a specific project done, think Fiverr, and then they go out and find typically recent college grads, but more and more so others in the workforce who are unemployed, to do that internship, which will last no more than about 30 or 40 hours, maybe 2 or 3 weeks, and you get paid, you know, somewhere between, depending on the length of or the number of hours they expect you to put into it, anywhere from $100 to $2,000. Right? So gig work, short-term contract work, consulting work is absolutely the wave of the future, and we have to get ourselves around, you know, wrap ourselves around how does that work for us. Cecily, do you want to talk at all about your questions or comments on diversity or the innovation race?
Okay, my experience recently, I've been applying for job in the universities, and they ask us to write a statement about what's my philosophy about diversity and inclusion. So this has never happened before. And also that I see, you know, all the shows like Apple and recently Adobe, you know, in general, I see very little people in color as a presenter. And now I see a lot more, you know, consciously. Actually, I just attended a Vanguard, and the moderator is a Black woman, actually is a minority. I thought it was a very strong accent. I thought that's very interesting. That's my observation about diversity and the innovation. You know, the job, I was looking at the job, and they, you know, they all want the most recent skills people need. You know, there's something they need right away, and people have to, you know, learn every day to fit into the box of the description of the job. Like certain software, you must have certain years of experience. Like I was trying to apply for instructional designer job, and I don't have certain types of software because I teach in the college. So
Right.
I just, you know, those skills is just sometimes a new software. They just, you know, come out like 1 year or 2 years, and they want you have 3 years of experience. I always thought it was very interesting. So the innovation rate, I think it's very strong. I think it's very stressful for many people who are looking for jobs that in those areas. That's my observation.
You hit on two really important pieces here that look at which employers are the most successful in today's environment. And the research has been coming out over the last 3 to 6 months that shows the companies who truly walk the walk along diversity, equity, and inclusion lines are the companies that are growing the fastest, that are the greatest innovators, because they have a more diverse background of experience among their employees to create new and different ways of looking at the questions and problems that they need to solve, right? And so those companies that are doing more innovation actually are able to manage the major disruptors like COVID more easily and more quickly. So a lot of these things do interplay with each other, but yes, if you can find companies that are more diverse, more equitable, more inclusive, they're going to be more successful. If you can find companies that are more innovative, they're going to be more successful. And so your opportunity for longer term employment will probably reside with those organizations. Now, we'll talk a little bit more later on about how are you to be successful in staying employed with those kinds of companies and all companies. Jim and Alan talking about the issues with interviews and interviewers and what's taking place in the interview process. You're right, Jim. People are getting sick every day, and that's delaying the hiring process because they have to delay interviews. So that's a real important thing to point out. I love and hate, Alan, your comment that you've been on as many as 10 rounds of interviews for one position. And I'd like to hear some more thoughts from you and anyone else on what that really means in terms of what's happening in the job search process. What do you think is going on? Why so many interviews, that kind of a thing? You want to start us off, Alan, with some thoughts? Anyone else have some thoughts or ideas on that?
Yeah, Paul, this is Pasquale. How are you?
Good. Go ahead, Pasquale.
You know, it's very interesting because, yes, I was on a panel discussion last night where we were talking about how do you attract talent, and we had some employers and some recruiters on it. And we actually saw there were people commenting on both sides of that coin of the number of rounds of interviews, in that in some cases you do have an increased number of interviews before, for various candidates for a position, and that because, as the person said, he goes, we're being a little bit more cautious because since these people are now asking for remote work, we're not going to be there in the office all the time. We really need to be a little bit more risk averse to make sure that we get the person that we want. On the other side, there was a couple of people saying that the problem they're seeing with that is that they're losing candidates. And that one guy said that they actually had 3 candidates who turned down the offer that they gave them because they were like, yeah, your process took too long. I got another job. And I remember there was a post that I saw on LinkedIn, and I want to say it was like 3 or 4 months ago, where this gentleman who was a programmer posted that he had to inform the company that he was interviewing with to take him out of the process because it was the perfect position for him. He thought it was the perfect company for them, but after going through 10 interviews, HR got to him and wanted to know his availability for interviews 11 through 15.
Oh my God.
And in his view, if you can't make a decision on who the right candidate is after 5, 6, let alone 10, that you need 15, I don't want to work for this company. And I think you're seeing people getting that. It's like, if you can't make this decision, what's it going to be like getting other decisions out of this that we're going to need to be made in this company in order to get the work actually done?
That's really a fascinating commentary, and not a good one. I agree.
Yeah.
And one of the things that, and you're right, it plays to Sam's comment. It feels like analysis, paralysis by analysis. Jim, afraid to make a hiring mistake, and that's absolutely the case. Many companies are concerned about making hiring mistakes because of the cost, especially now with remote employment and having to ship computers and things back and forth and do everything remotely. You know, the cost of hiring someone is just gone astronomical. And so I need to find a better way as an employer of hiring people so that I can get the right hire the first time. Now, I also agree that 10 to 15 interviews is just way too many.
Right.
And so as a candidate, what are some things, and we'll take just a minute or two, maybe 3 or 4 suggestions. What are some things that we can do to help shorten that process or prevent the need for that many interviews? Anybody have some thoughts?
I do, Paul. I mean, one of the things you can do is present your case in such a way that they feel confident you can do your job. Show them examples of your work, if you can do that, or anything to reassure them that you're at the level that you can do this, and they shouldn't have to keep questioning you over and over again and having second thoughts.
Good. It's a great comment. Anyone else?
Yeah, I mean, I also like to add a caveat in that looking at job description, we see outrageous requirements. Like, for an entry-level job, they're asking for 5 years of experience. So they feel that because they are risk adverse, they have to push it in such a way that they have to find the what you call a la perle rare, meaning like I don't know, the most interesting bride. So in terms of marketing ourselves, we really have to know what we want to do and where we want to do it, because there's a lot of opportunity out there that taking forever. I interviewed with Amazon. It was lengthy, but the nice thing was that you were getting a response as you were moving into the progress,
So Jean, I agree with you that finding ways to give them the information that will, I'm sorry, but that phone distracted me and I forgot what you had actually said, but finding ways to make sure that they are getting all the information they need earlier or faster in the process is important. And I would encourage everyone, you want to, at the end of every interview, certainly ask a question like, what else do you need to know about me in order to make this decision? What else do you need to know about me in order to move me forward in the process? And then if you're asking that at the end of every interview, they should be able to come up with what those issues are that would prevent future interviews. Now, they may not, but this could be a way of doing it. You might also suggest, is there a way we can do a panel interview and get 2 or 3 people out of the way in one shot, so I don't have to have 10 or 15 interviews, and you can get the hiring decision made more quickly. But offer up some ideas. Jim spoke with a headhunter. Referral prospect. Okay. Spoke with
excuse me,
right.
Paul. There's also a question from Michael.
Go ahead.
So Michael, please ask away. Michael Colbert.
I did that. Basically my question was that I kind of think companies that take 10 or 15 interviews, and I'm sorry because I jumped in the middle of this, I had a medical issue with my wife. Anyhow, I think it's kind of a paralysis in a sense that each person's afraid to make a decision on their own. The last 3 jobs I got, I never had more than 2 interviews, and they were.
So what's your question, Michael? What's your
So
question?
my question goes back to why would you want to? I would say after 5 interviews, if you haven't made up your mind, I'm moving on, because obviously, I mean, I don't know if that's a good attitude. I don't know if that's the way to do things. But after a while, it becomes, and I don't know how you feel about this, Paul, almost wasting your time because you're just spinning the wheels.
I think, and I don't want to beat this horse too dead, but, you have to make the decision as to how important is this role and this company to you in your job search. And is it worth going through their 12 or 15 interviews because it really is the place I want to work? Or is it more of an issue that because I don't want to deal with more than 4 or 5 or 6 interviews, and if you can't make up a decision at that time, then I don't need to work here, then you choose to, remove yourself from the process. But that's an individual choice based on your situation. Don, what's your question?
Well, I was wondering if it would be appropriate, or maybe a fatal error, if, say, after the 3rd interview, they tell you they want you back for another one, if you would simply ask why. Why is this needed, or what do you hope to gain from another interview? It just seems that might put the onus on them to explain themselves a little bit more, and then you might be able to decide, I want to do it or I don't want to do it.
You don't want to just use that one-word question, why, but yes, by asking the question like, what else do you need to know in order to move forward in the process? Or what else do you need to know about me in order to decide to hire me, right? In essence, ask for the job. When you do that at the end of every interview, you should be helping to short circuit the process as much as possible. But if, from my perspective, and I'm sure, Don, you didn't mean to say, I'm just going to come out and say, well, why do I need another interview? But you don't want to come off sounding, confrontational or questioning their, quote, authority. But by asking, is there anything more that you need to know about me? You're putting it in a very non-confrontational way of saying, let's get this over with. Okay. Alan, your question.
What you're saying is not true. You're not in charge. The interview and the company is in charge. So when you apply for a job, they interview with the HR person, and this only really goes for professional positions, not necessarily a blue collar work. But for the most part, there are a lot more rounds of interviews, and if you don't want to do it, then you're not a candidate for that particular role. You can't ask them to say, make a decision here. They will. They'll say, I'm sorry, if you don't go to the next round, you're no longer a candidate for that role. There's usually going to be an interview with an HR person and a management person and a person who runs the company and potentially a revenue person. And I've noticed more and more, especially during the pandemic, that you're going to go through between 5 and 10 rounds. And that could be extended. It could be weeks before they make decisions. So you're not in charge when you're interviewing. It's not
You're right. I am also seeing and hearing from my clients that the interview process is being extended not only because of the issues of people getting sick and being absent from work, but also the issues of increasing the number of interviews so that they make a good choice from the start. And ultimately, we are not in charge. We can do things to try and take some control, but really they are in charge of the process. So let's move on to my next question. And really it's the same question, but let's look at it through a different lens. And I know a bunch of you on this call are employed, right? So what are you seeing about changes that are taking place in the way you are working because you're employed and COVID? What's happening? What's different today from 2, 3, 4 years ago? So some of these things we've talked about a little bit already, but these are some of the things that are coming up in my research. Is there any one or two here that are significant or question that you have on some of them from this list? The work-life balance is a really big thing for a lot of people. And that Pure Wow article mentioned, it looks like more and more companies are going to go to a 4-day work week, and that the advent of remote working and the desire for work-life balance is bringing people to say, I want to be able to work 10 or 12 hours a day and take an extra day off. I thought that's interesting. Joe, tell us what you're thinking in terms of remote opportunity or hybrid to stay.
Years ago, I wouldn't have been able to be working 5 days a week remotely from home. Right now, I'm told, because of the Omicron thing, I got an email last night. Next week is also fully remote. Don't come in unless you have to. And when they do finally go back to whatever that new normal will be, they're still talking about probably working 2 days from home remotely, as in a hybrid schedule.
Mm-hmm.
There's also some rumors of, like you said, the 4-day work week.
There are some companies that have already started experimenting with the 4-day work week, and the early anecdotal indications are that they are not seeing a reduction in productivity, but in many cases seeing an increase in productivity by having people work a longer day but fewer days per week.
The 4-day work week was around years ago, but not that prevalent. I had a friend, I guess when he worked at Warner Lambert, I'm going back into the 90s, he had a 4-day work week. He had every Friday off. What BAE Systems out in Wayne and Totowa still has what they call the 980 compressed work week. 9 hours Monday through Friday and 8 hours on Monday through Thursday. 8 hours Friday and every other Friday off.
Nice.
Okay, where I used to be, they called them summer hours.
Yeah.
So some companies do different things. Where I am now, they sort of do that. 9 hours in the summer, Monday through Thursday, and 4 hours Friday. And it's, well, I still have to go into work, guys. Allied Signal tried that, and it was, well, you got an afternoon off, but you still had the commute.
Oh, I have a question. Oh, I'm sorry.
Hang on one second, Patrick, because I'm curious about Carol's comment, setting your own hours, just do what it takes to get the work done. And Carol, my next question is going to actually be looking at this from the employer's perspective. But as one who is both an employer and currently unemployed, tell me a little more about your views on just get it done. I don't care how many hours you work.
Well, it's two dimensions. One is that the workday can basically, except for meetings or collaboration with peers, you can do your work anytime you want to do your work. So, I mean, if you want to take the afternoon off to go to the kids' baseball game or whatever, you can do that because you can put those 2 hours in later in the evening. Say when it's convenient for you. It's also, you have to be more self-disciplined in the sense that no one is there looking over your shoulder except, I mean, you know, keystroke monitoring and stuff like that. But it's basically you're responsible for getting the work done on schedule, within quality and within budget, whatever you need to do. So no one's going to be there monitoring you minute by minute.
Yeah, so, and more employees are almost demanding that employers look at employment not from punching a time clock perspective, but from productivity perspective, and saying, why should it matter to you when I do the work, so long as I get the project done on time and under budget? If it's done when it needs to get done, what's your problem? Right? So
I'd like to give a perspective.
The hard part about that is management has not yet learned how to manage to that type of productivity model versus an hour or time model. Caller one, I think it was, that was trying to chime in. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Sorry to interrupt you earlier. A counterpoint in terms from an employer's perspective, one of the statements that was made from a law firm context that probably is a universal concern is informal mentoring of senior people or mid-level people to junior people or whatever, and valuable conversations taking place in the hallways, in the stairwells, cafeteria, that kind of thing. There are certain questions that people may feel uncomfortable putting in writing, especially with all of the, everything is permanent in terms of emails and that kind of thing. And there's a certain comfortableness in raising questions in an informal way. Same thing in terms of being able to sit in on a call. Sometimes it can be an excellent learning opportunity if you do things formally, like by a Zoom call. Each person is identified as a participant, but if you had in person, then you could have certain junior people or other people of the team, sit there and listen in and not necessarily have to disclose it to the other people who are from another entity. The other thing is, one thing that the law firm had implemented was having a set days that were set by departments of when they really would like people to physically come in. So it could be 1 day a week, it could be 2 days a week, and the idea was to have a critical mass in case decisions needed to be made. There was a lot of encouragement among some Wall Street kind of firms to have people come in. That's been failing to a certain degree for a whole variety of reasons that many people on this call are aware of. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Patrick, go ahead and share what you wanted to do.
Yeah, I was just curious in the context of the remote working and all. If you're in an interview, is there, and I know you can't make a general answer to this, but is there a better answer about working remotely? If you're asked what's your opinion of working remotely, is there a better or worse answer, to make your point come across better?
Well, that's a really good question. I would probably fall back to, asking about what's important to you, employer. Is what's important to you the productivity, the getting the right product, the right project, the right work done, or is what's more important that I punch the time clock? And try and approach my response from that perspective. I see Alex is on the call with us, Alex Freund, and I'm always glad to have you around, Alex. Thank you for joining. And I want to touch on your comment, but maybe would you have a quick answer you would give Patrick as to how to respond to that question in an interview?
I'm embarrassing myself because my mind was elsewhere. Patty, could you please ask the question again?
Yes, I was wondering, when an employer asks you in an interview, your opinion or your point of view about working remotely, is there a better or worse answer that you should or should not give as a general statement?
Yeah. Here's how I would answer it. I'm very interested in this position. I understand it's COVID, so now we have to conform to what the requirements are. If the company wants to work remote, I will. If the company wants me to come in, I will. I'm very, very flexible. All I want to share with you, I'm very, very interested in this position.
Okay, so it sounds like, and I don't mean this sarcastically, but it sounds like blowing a little bit of smoke to cover all the bases. I will, I won't. You do, you don't. Okay, that answers my question.
Well, I wouldn't say it's blowing smoke, Patrick. It's basically, though, saying to the employer, I understand that you set the rules, and I am ready and willing to live within whatever the rules are that you set. I'd like to have a say in those rules and talk through what would work best for both of us, right? But in the end, I'm happy to do what you need me to do. And I'll give you a quick example of that. This morning, literally, I was on a call just before this one with the grant managers for the grant I'm working on. And last night, they sent me an email saying, could you parse this data in a different way? And the truth is, they're not getting any new information out of parsing the data the different way. But you know what? This morning, before I talked to them, I parsed the data the different way, and I sent it off. And in the call, I said, listen, I sent you what you need. I didn't even say, I think you're full of crap. But I sent you what you need. Let me know if that fits your bill. Because I don't want to upset them. I don't want them to question whether or not I'm on board as a team member. I just want to do it and get it done. Alex's comment, about how do we build relationships in this work from home or remote work environment is a really great comment. And Alex, I want you to remember that, because we are going to talk about it a little bit later on. So we're going to come back to that specific topic shortly.
Paul,
would you allow me to quickly answer to Pat something? And that's a benefit to everybody else.
Yes.
Let's make it very, very, very clear. What is the objective of the interview?
That's right.
The objective of the interview is one, for them to say, Paul, I want you to work for us. That doesn't mean that you say, I will take it. They either make you an offer, and that's great, then you have opportunities to change or negotiate whatever, or if they don't make you an offer, then nothing else matters.
That's right.
That's what they about. Sorry about that.
No, it's a perfect clarification. And I have had 3 clients this past year alone. Once they got to the offer, they were able to completely change what the expectations of the job were through the negotiation process. One of them was interviewing for a fully in-person position. By the time they were done with the interview process and negotiating, the employer was willing to let him work fully remote. Another was willing to go to a hybrid scenario. A third person was able to negotiate an additional 20% or 30% salary increase because of the need to commute. And so the employer was, in all these cases, the employers were looking at what the candidate presented and said, you got a valid point. Maybe we need to change our perspective. So Alex is absolutely right. We both agree on this all the time. Your only job right now is to get a job offer, because until you have an offer, nothing else matters. Let's look at this thing. I want to move on.
This question. Okay. All right. Thank you.
I'm sorry, Patrick. I want to keep going on a couple other things, but if we have time at the end, let's come back to it. Okay. So if we look at this same question now from the hiring manager's perspective, what do we see? What can we learn about how work has changed from the hiring manager's perspective? And here's some of the things that I've learned. Anything here that stands out to any of you?
Yeah, Paul, this is Alan. I would say that the flexibility part of it is really important because, with COVID, everybody's had to pivot with the remote and the hybrid and things like that. So as a hiring manager, I want to see somebody's flexible and can pivot, and that's really critical to the success of the individual as well as the company.
Perfect. Great. Any other thoughts or comments?
Yeah. So one of the challenges is that from a hiring manager perspective, it's all and good to be wanting people that are flexible, but is the manager itself flexible? Because some people are like FaceTime, and really having FaceTime does not mean that we are productive. So the manager must first start by understanding what works for them so that they could set the expectation for the team.
You're absolutely right, John. The flexibility needs to be a two-way street. And what employers are starting to do, and it's not a lot of them yet, it's just a beginning trend, is to look at what does it mean for me to be flexible as a manager, and where can I be flexible and where can I not be flexible in the way I approach my employees. Because employees are struggling with engagement within each other, as Alex has referred to before. Employers are struggling to keep employees engaged and to engage with employees. And so that is becoming a real strong, significant issue that managers have to look more carefully at. The whole concept of workplace and employee health and safety through COVID has taken on all new meanings and questioning our past practices. And so managers are having to look at, are we really approaching our staff in a way that is the most healthy for them? One of the things that's coming out of that, which I saw recently, employers are starting to include mental health days off separate from sick days, or they're increasing the number of sick days and including taking time off for mental health as an allowable sick day option. Interesting thing to see that that's coming about. Anything else on this stand out on this list? Okay, please explain the impact of the ACA and benefits, Jim asks. So here's the thing with that, Jim. Especially as we continue to move into an increasingly gig or project-based economy, employers are going to have to look at the way they provide benefits very differently. We as employees are going to need to look at what do we expect from employers in the way of benefits very differently. Because most health insurance, they require you be with the company for a couple of months before they put you on the policy. And then if you're not going to be there for more than 6 or 8 months, it's worthless to put you on the policy, right? So we have to consider, do we have the right process and pieces in place for benefits in the future? And I think the answer is that it's going to change. Politically, like it or not, and I don't want to get into the politics of it, if I were crystal balling, I think we're going to see a more socialized healthcare system in our future if we continue down this road of short-term employment through consulting and gig work. And then we're also going to, as employees, have to start to think more about, am I putting money away not only for the days that I'm not employed, but also for days that I want to take off because my company's not going to pay me for vacation time. So there's a lot of churn, a lot of change taking place, and it's going to be real interesting to see how it all plays out. Good question.
There's also another factor with the ACA is that they don't need to offer you medical if you work less than 30 hours a week. So many employers are deliberately keeping their staff, their hourly staff, for less than 30 hours a week. So they don't have to offer benefits. So a person could have 2-3 jobs, all less than 30 hours a week, and not be eligible for medical for any of them.
That's right.
There's also, the retirement savings plans as well, is that if you're working gigs, you may be responsible for all of it yourself. And with the limitations on how much you can sock away in tax-deferred accounts, that may also be a large impact.
And so you can see how all of these different things we're talking about really impact on the profit and loss and financial projections of the company. headcount is the #1 expense for almost every business. Anything I can do to reduce headcount reduces my cost. And another way to look at that is, since most benefits and taxes cost the employer 30 to 45% of your salary, if I can reduce those expenses, I can reduce the cost of headcount and therefore keep more people employed, right? So by keeping you under that 30-hour limit for the ACA, I've reduced the need for about 10 or 15% of my benefit costs to having you as an employee. Now I can hire more people. There's pluses and minuses to it. The question is who's benefiting from it, and how is that benefit helping? Another big issue is the improved and increased need for crisis communications, both internally and externally. You know, how well are we doing as managers informing our employees of what is happening within the company? How transparent are we? And how is that hurting or helping us by being better communicators in most crisis situations? And if we think about disruptors as becoming, business disruptors becoming more frequent and more impactful, our ability to communicate with our employees and with our other stakeholders, customers and the like, is becoming more and more important. So that may be a growth area in the future, to have people that are really good at doing that corporate communications piece for us. Anything else here of significance to you?
Paul?
Yeah.
My comment is, and you from other groups know that I've been working on my own business, and what drove me there is some of the things that you just mentioned. I'm well over 50. Who's going to want to give me benefits because I'm considered, when you get to be that age, a high cost in terms of health insurance utilization? And do I want to put up with certain things in the corporate world at my stage of the game, when I've played that game for a long time? And a number of the other things that you've mentioned have drove me really to make the decision that I have to do something on my own, because anything is going to be a gig anyway at my age. So if it's going to be a gig, it might as well be my gig, is what.
Good point. And that's the kind of internal conversation that each of us has to have. And I say each of us, meaning no matter how old you are, no matter where you are in your career, you need to be asking that question. I see a lot of the under 30 crowd that I talk with through the Young Job Seekers Club or the Yojo Club that I run. They're all having the same question. Do I go after the long-term, full-time, permanent position, or do I cobble together 3 or 4 different positions to create a salary that is important enough and large enough for what I need? And I'm finding most of them going the route of putting together multiple positions. Many times those are multiple gig or consulting positions. In the end, the one thing we do need to remember when it comes to employers, no matter how personal it may feel to you, their decision 95% of the time is not personal, and it is about what's right and best for the business. And so we need to just, I don't want to say accept what they say, but we need to move on from that. We need to not get emotionally attached to the fact that they decided to let me go, because it probably wasn't your fault. It probably was more about changes in the business, especially when you're talking layoffs, than it is about anyone at fault. So things to be aware of. Okay, so let's talk some about strategies for success, and we're going to come back now, Alex, to your comment in just a minute about employee or workforce engagement. But here are some of the things that I see that are important strategies for us to be successful in our future employment, especially if we're in that long-term W-2 employment scenario. Look and observe carefully what's going on in the company. Who are the people that are succeeding? And what are they doing that makes them successful? Who are the people that are being challenged by their jobs? And what is making them not successful? Who are the folks that bring value? And what is the value that they bring? Now, in learning about those things, how does that change the way I need to approach my job so that I can be successful, I'm not challenged, I bring value, and the boss perceives me as someone worthy of keeping around? Be flexible. Be flexible. Wait, let me say it again. Be flexible. The more flexible you can be, the more likely your employer will be flexible for you. And even though we are in somewhat of an employee or a candidate environment where we have more power than employers, we really need to be careful about how we talk to other people and choosing not to make demands of others, but instead ask them a lot of questions that get to the concerns that you have. Show a lot of empathy and compassion. And, you know, it's really tough for all of us. The entire world has gone through at least one, if not two or more, psychologically proven major life events in the last 2 years. So many of us have lost a job. That is a major life event in psychological terms. It screws with our brains tremendously if we don't take care of it. So many of us have lost loved ones or had major illnesses or lost opportunities to be with the people that we love and care about. These are major life events that from a psychological perspective really mess with our heads. And so everyone is on edge, everyone is anxious, everyone is angry. Whether or not we believe it, see it, feel it for ourselves, it's there somewhere in you. Be aware of that. Find ways to be more empathetic. Find ways to be more compassionate. Any thoughts, questions on these three items? I've got a few more we're going to go through in just a second, but I just want to see if you have any thoughts on these. Learn how to be accessible. Oh my God. My husband works for United Parcel Service in their IT department. Every single day he comes to me and he says, Paul, I get a request from this person from another department. I respond to that request, oftentimes needing to ask for more information. So I IM them back. Within 2-3 minutes of them IMing me, instant messaging me, I IM them back with my questions. 5 minutes, 20 minutes, an hour, no response. So I send them an email. Did you see my IM? I have these questions. Can you get that information so I can respond to yours? No response back. He calls them on the phone. They don't answer the phone, and an hour later have still not responded to the voicemail. Finally, he sends an IM to them and their boss. And I'll be damned if they don't respond within 30 seconds. What is that saying about that employee? So what can you and I do to ensure that we are being as responsive as possible when someone else in our organization reaches out to us, so that they see that we are available and that we are working and doing what we can. Now, clearly, not all things require an immediate response, but sometimes an immediate response could be working on another project. We'll get back to you later today. Well, at least now I know you saw my question and you don't have a chance to respond to it now fully. No problem. I can wait. Or I may come back and say, sorry, my boss needs this immediately. We need to escalate it in your priority list. How can we do that, right? But I'm responding. We're talking to each other, right? Do more by phone and/or video. Remember what the research shows about communication and how messages are transmitted, right? Less than 10% is by the words we use. Somewhere around 35 or so percent is in tone of voice. And the remaining 50% is all in body language. So we need to stop using technology to communicate in all cases. There are times when it's a good and appropriate thing to use, but there are also a lot of times where voice and video or in person is more appropriate. Setting your schedule to communicate expectations better. Man, the more we can set expectations, both communication expectations and outcomes expectations, the better we're going to be, the more valuable we're going to be to our employee and employers. So, do that expectation setting, that scheduling up and down and side to side in your business so that everybody is aware of what the expectations are. And, if your boss is not giving them to you, tell them this is what I think my expectations should be. Confirm or no. Am I right on or am I wrong? Help me to know what to do to be better at it. Okay. Joe, another way to be flexible, using Teams and the audio problems, I volunteered to make a conference call to everyone using my phone. Great. Be a problem solver. We'll talk more about that in just a second. Excellent. Preferable to offer work on a contract basis or to seek full-time position, especially if you do not need benefits? It's a good question, Pete. Should we be looking for permanent work or should we be looking for contract work? And the truth of the matter is, as Marty Latman loves to say, it depends. It really is more about what is your scenario, what is your situation, what is your risk level, what is your comfortability level. I would argue that in today's environment, there is more contract, gig, or consulting work than there is W-2 permanent employment work. But there is a mix of both, and you need to just figure out what's the right mix for you and go after those options. To get directly to Alex's comment on engagement, here are some things that I would suggest you want to consider to be better engaged. And does anybody have any thoughts or comments on any of these? Or do you have additional ideas you would add to this? Alex,
my only thought, Paul, reading this, make sure that the goal, especially reach out to 5 people, whether internal or external, make sure 5 is a good number for you. So when you're starting out, 3 might be an easier number, or 2, and get a little bit comfortable with it. Don't let the number of 5 as a hard and fast rule scare you.
And these are not hard and fast rules, so good point. Thanks, David. What I will say to you is this, my experience and the experience of some others that have done this, and by the way, I got this idea from my husband as well, who tends to be an introvert, by the way, but found that the interaction of walking around his office from cubicle to cubicle and just stopping in to say hello to people throughout the day as a part of his business process really helped him get more information and solutions to problems. So one of the things he started doing when he started working remotely was created a list of the 50 or 60 people in his company that were the most valuable relationships that he had when he was in the office. And he said, every Monday, I'm going to reach out to 5 of those people. I may try and call them. I may just send them an IM. I may send them an email, but I'm going to in some way reach out to 5 people just to say, hey, how you doing? Here's what's happening in my world. What's happening in yours? 1, maybe 2 would be available to talk when he sent the initial communication. By the end of the week, he got to speak to 3 or 4 of them. Rarely did he get to actually speak to all 5 of them or have some type of a communication exchange with all 5 of them. Usually it was 3 or 4 that he would have some type of an exchange with. And then next week, he would go to the next 5 on the list and do the same thing. And the week after that, the next 5. And the week after that, the next 5. And when he got to the end of the list, he'd start over again and keep going down the list. And by doing that, he's been able to maintain not only the professional, but the personal relationships that he's had with those people so that he can continue to call on them through the week and say, hey, you know, this just came up. I know we spoke last week, but this issue just came up. I was wondering what your take is on it. Can you help me out? But you're right. Don't let the number 5, you know, be I must use 5 as the goal. Pick a goal that works for you. Other thoughts?
Hey, Paul, this is Bill Pagula. How you doing?
Good.
I saw an article earlier this week that I thought was really interesting in that people are looking employers are looking for staff, and a source that they're starting to look at is the people that they've previously laid off.
It's about time.
Which I thought was interesting. And then one of the things that this article suggested was, as you're integrating someone who knows the job because they worked in it before, things have changed. So it kind of in line with your mentor comment is get a buddy system going where the new person coming in may not be a mentor, but it's a buddy that you can ask a question without being embarrassed.
Yes, excellent thought. So be that mentor, be that buddy for someone else, but also reach out to find one for yourself. And I don't care if you've been with the company a day, a week, or 5 years. We should all have a mentor, and we should all be a mentor in the job, because that's going to just open us up to additional and new opportunities and ideas. You might want to consider that the people that you're mentoring not necessarily be within your chain of command. Maybe it's someone, especially your mentor, someone outside your chain of command who'd be willing to look at what you're doing and give you a totally different perspective on it so that you can learn from it. And then that may be your next boss in the company. You never know. Any other thoughts here?
Oh, it's Charlotte Ann.
Charlotte Ann, go ahead.
I was just going to add, I think take a walk, because I really think that we're confined to our homes, and people just get outside. You mentioned, you know, walking around was a way to talk with people, but just get outside, get a change of view. I think that for me, a lot of answers come to me when I'm outside walking, and I might work through some issues that way, but just a little fresh air, a little movement, a change of scenery gives a fresh perspective and is very rejuvenating. And we shouldn't forget to do that.
Perfect. Thank you. It's a great comment, Charlotte Ann. Alan, no, go ahead. Alan Kirshner.
Yeah, I would say, you know, a lot of that to me sounds like networking or relationship development, as Alex likes to call it. And it's really important now. You know, I think it's a bit more challenging, you know, that we're either on Zoom or we're remote or hybrid or things, but it's just important to have those relationships and cultivate them and keep them going. So I think your husband's idea is really good, and you make it as a commitment and as a goal, so it makes it a little bit more tangible as far as attaining it.
Yeah, great, thank you. Alex, I do want to come back and ask you specifically, because you commented on the concern earlier. Does this help you? Do you have any other thoughts or comments on the idea of engagement in the workplace?
Yeah, and that's associated with the message that I put here on the chat, that I see universally an issue that managers do not know how to manage remotely. And managing remotely is the umbrella word for relationship development. And
yes.
For me to explain this very succinctly is like this. 14 years ago, my wife and I went to China on a trip. They took us to a local restaurant. We received the food, and I'm looking for forks and knives. No, we received chopsticks. I'm embarrassed to tell everybody I don't know how to use chopsticks. So I was hungry. I couldn't start eating until I waved to the waiter and said, "Can I please get a fork?" I did not know how to do. This is what's happening today to managers in America. They were told, forget it, no longer forks and knives, chopstick. You need to be able to do the same or even better, but the rules have changed. Now you need to be in charge and manage all your departments, and you'll not see them, and you don't have a chance to bring them to a conference room. You still have to produce. Go ahead and do it. And that's a problem.
Yes, and you know, learning how to manage a remote meeting like this one is a really important skill. I've attended several meetings where people want to say something, but they're never recognized or given the opportunity to talk, and they're ignored. Or half the group is in person and half the group is online, and the in-person people are, the microphones are overpowered by the folks who are in person, so the folks online don't get a chance to chime in because they can't get the microphones to transition, you know. So you know, we have to learn, you're right, Alex, how to manage these different scenarios in a way that engages everyone that's involved. Great comment, thank you. So here are some other strategies that we can look at. And you know, it's an old adage, I know, lead by example. But what else do you see here, or what other thoughts do you have in terms of strategies that will help you to be successful in this new environment? And I like number 8, you know, be seen in the workplace, right? And for introverts, this could be a part of the problem. When we're in the office, the boss has a chance to actually see you and come in and say, hey, I haven't talked to you in a while, what's going on, right? Whereas working remotely, you know, it's out of sight, out of mind. And so what do I have to do to keep me on the mind of my management team? Or another way to look at it, when I was working at a school in particular, but I did this with all of my employers, there were 2 people in the building that I always made sure that I said hello to and spent time chatting with: the receptionist and the custodian. So often, how do we just, you know, how many times do we just walk right past that receptionist desk because we know where we're going, we know we're allowed in the building, we don't need to stop and talk to anybody, we just go. Person is completely ignored by us, right? Do we even know when and where and how the cleaning crew is cleaning our building during the day? Do we even know who they are? They're invisible employees. None of us should be invisible. How do we make sure that not only are we not invisible, but that we are not causing others to be invisible, whether they're in person or remote? And some of the things we've talked about are ways that we can help to reduce that invisibility. But what are some others?
Yeah, it's funny you kind of talk about the cleaning people and receptionists and stuff, and it is so true about, you know, just being friendly to them, saying hello and all that. I know where I last was, I would work late at night, and then the night crew would come in to clean, and you find out just by saying hello and all how friendly they really are and all. And you know, you don't realize it, but these are the people that come in and make your life better in the morning, you know, when you walk in the door, you know, because your desk is clean, there's no dust on your keyboard, your monitor, things like that, floor is vacuumed. You know, even with the receptionist, if they have duties other than, you know, just being at the desk, like ordering supplies, if you need something, you talk to them, they'll be more than happy to get it for you.
Yeah.
So, you know, and on a human level, it recognizes them and it brings a personal relationship into things.
You know, I love Nancy's comment. It should go without saying, right? But treat everyone with respect, regardless of their position. And Joe's thoughts, which is really powerful. And you kind of alluded to it as well, Don. You know, or Donald, the cleaning crew and the receptionist quite often have knowledge that they can share that may not yet be public knowledge, but because they're invisible, we're willing to talk around them and say things that we otherwise would want to be kept private. But we don't even see that they're there, so we don't think that we have to be concerned about it. You know, think about the turn of the century and all of the butlers and household staff and all that they learned about their employer, the homeowners, you know, but never got to talk about because the homeowners were talking with their friends and family in front of them. Right? So let's not be invisible.
Paul, I had to take some management course undergraduate, and one of the big takeaways that I had from that course, there's a corporate grapevine. Be connected to it because you hear all sorts of things.
Yes. Yes, excellent. Thanks, Joe. I want to spend a little bit of time really talking about this concept of being a consulting employee. Now, we might want to change that terminology at this point because more and more of us are just going to be consultants. But whether we're on a long-term W-2 assignment or if we're on a 1099 short-term assignment, we all need to approach employment as if we are consultants. And there are some strategies that consultants use in order to ensure that they stay employed, that they have a constant income, right? One of them is that they are always looking to be the problem solver. So while we're at the company, we want to be looking around to find out what is the next challenge that's coming down the road and how can I position myself to be the solver of that challenge rather than a cause of the challenge. How can I show more innovation? The mentorship comes up again in this respect. You're always looking for what is your next project? Does your employer know about the new skills that you have and how you're using them or can use them to the company's benefit? Let's take one step back. Are you actually getting any new skills? Because we all need to be doing that on a constant basis. And a great place to do all of that research, that learning, that information gathering is through industry and professional associations, alumni associations, any place where people gather that are going to be talking about the things that are important to you in your role. You want to be gathering with them. Right? So find those free training opportunities. find those networking opportunities, especially within industry and professional associations. You're going to find a lot of hiring managers are attending those meetings. So you want to attend and be seen there and see them and talk to them so that they get to know you. And, with remote meetings, it almost becomes, in some ways, for the introvert, easier because you can gather their contact information through something like the chat and then set up that one-on-one conversation for next week, the week after, whenever it's convenient for both of you, right? But take advantage of those opportunities. We've talked a lot about flexibility and adeptness to change. So we need to always be thinking about how are we reinventing ourselves. I'll give you a quick example from myself. This past year, 2 things happened that have significantly impacted, in a positive way, my business. Number 1, I got this new certification. I actually learned some things. I'm not surprised. I shouldn't say actually, but I really did learn some new things that make me a better career coach for having gone through the 120-hour education program that was required to get that certification, among other things. So I can do a much better job now at coaching because of that. I was asked by a past employer to take on a role as a grant manager for this grant that their organization was given. I had no intention of ever doing any kind of full-time, part-time, any kind of work like that where I was reporting to another manager ever again. I always expected that now that I'm full-time career coaching, I'm going to just do that. But boy, let me tell you, by having done that grant management role, not only did I get access to a whole bunch of additional people for independent clients or career coaching clients, I also got access to a lot of folks and organizations that potentially could use me for corporate training and other purposes. And so going into this year, I have 5 or 6 additional opportunities for income streams that I would never have gotten had I not taken that job as this part-time grant manager, right? So I'm reinventing myself. I'm being adaptable and flexible, and it's changing the way I look at my business model for the better. How can we improve our interpersonal skills? The best consultants are the best communicators. They know how to listen. They know how to talk. They know when to talk and when not to. Oh, and I see a typo, so let's just fix that right now. They learn how to read body language better, right? And, going back to the 1980s total quality management concept, they treat everyone in the organization as a customer, including that custodian or receptionist, right? And then I don't know if you can really see it there down the bottom, control your emotions. That's an important one for me, but it may be important for everyone. Learn how to control your emotions, keep yourself on an even keel so that you can see things more clearly, you can respond to things in a better and less confrontational way, but you're getting your point across. Thoughts, questions on this stuff? A final slide on consulting. Eliminate that entitlement concept. I see this so much with the younger generation, but even more and more, it's slipping into our generation. I demand you do this for me because I deserve it. You deserve a day off? What have you done that's so special you deserve a day off? Right, so think about that entitlement perspective, and am I projecting that or not? And you got to be an expert at job search. In fact, I changed the comment from job search to work search because we're going to be looking for multiple different ways of finding income to create the income we need for the compensation we need for our lifestyle or to improve our lifestyle. So we all need to become very much experts at work search. Other thoughts, questions, comments on being a consulting employee?
I think one of the things that was entitlement is fairness. Is how do we perceive fairness? Like one person gets hybrid, 3 days a week, and you get 2 to be able to work
Yes.
from home. How is it fair? Well, first of all, as a manager, how does the manager decide? And in another case, how do people react?
Yes.
How do we react when we want 3 days a week and we only get 2, but the guy who doesn't do anything next door gets, 4 days a week from home?
Yes.
So how do we, how does everybody deal with it, you might say?
And that is a concern, but that's not necessarily entitlement, right?
That's true.
It's okay for me to say, gee, I notice so-and-so is getting 3 days a week remote where I'm really only allowed 2. Can you tell me a little bit about why there's that difference, or is it possible for me to get the 3 days as well? Right, but I'm not going in demanding, you have to do this for me. I'm asking questions, I'm gathering information. Indirectly, I'm pointing out to management, you're treating people differently and you need to have a reason for doing so, and if not, then you need to treat me the same as you treat them. But that's all implied, it's never said directly. Good comment, thanks, Carol. Other thoughts, questions, comments here? Side notes, but things that we've kind of touched on, look for multiple income streams. It's the only way we're going to find security in the future. In the past, multiple income streams were the way to build wealth and to grow in your ability to improve your lifestyle. In today's environment, we need multiple income streams just to keep up. So find ways to build multiple income opportunities, which could be, a 2-income family, or it may mean that as an individual, I have 2 or 3 different ways of finding income. So great. Passive income is a great income stream. You're absolutely right, Joe. And that could be one of those income streams for us. Okay. I love this quote from Robert Kennedy. There are those that look at things the way they are and ask why. I dream of things that never were and ask why not. And isn't that an innovation mindset? And then Buckminster Fuller, I love this comment from him. You never change things by fighting the existing reality. To change things, build a new model that makes the existing model obsolete. And isn't that what Microsoft did? Isn't that what Amazon is doing? Isn't that what Tesla and Elon Musk is doing? Here are some of my upcoming presentations. This one's getting pretty popular right now, so it's going to be done a few more times. There's some other options here. I love the Listen to Create Effective Networking as a presentation. It's another one like this that's very interactive. We'll be breaking out into small groups and practicing our 30-second introductions, but practicing it more from the perspective of the listener, not from the speaker. So that's a lot of fun. You're certainly welcome to participate in any or all of these presentations. If you can't get there on your own, just let me know and I will get you there, but these contacts should be the way to get connected to those groups. These are some other groups that I participate in. The 3 that I most want to really talk about is the Yojo Club. If you know anyone who's under 30 years old and is needing help with their job search, the Outstanding Career Group for the LGBTQ community, and then the Supply Chain Professional Strategic Group is another one. And those 3, along with Morris County Executives in Transition, first off, they all are meeting remotely, but those 4 groups are very different from this one. Where this is a speaker-based group, those groups are very much based on peer communication. So they meet for about an hour and a half, and during that time, we look at how many people are on the call, and it usually works out everybody gets about 10 or 15 minutes of that hour and a half time. In your first minute or two, you're going to give us your 30-second intro and a little bit about the status of your job search. And then after that, the group is going to help you to resolve any challenges you have in your job search for the remaining time that you have of your 10 minutes or so. Thanks, guys. I appreciate your time, your interest, and all of your participation. You all had a lot of really great comments, and I really appreciate that. What I'll be doing is taking this slide deck with all of the comments that we've added and send it off to David so that he can post it as he does to anyone and everyone who needs it.
Well, Paul, thank you so much. It's always a pleasure, and we get a tremendous amount of terrific information from you when you present. I'm so glad that you continue to be a supporter of PSG of Mercer County, and of course, the other groups that you mentioned. I also did put your contact information in chat. So if anyone just wants to copy it out of chat, you're welcome to. We will be posting chat along with the slides and other information. This program is recorded, so if you need to go back and revisit any of it, that will be available a little later in our YouTube channel. And by the way, to access any of our meeting presentation documents on our website, on the right side of our website, psgofmercercounty.org, is a link called Meeting Presentation Documents. So this is a meeting, and Paul will be providing presentation documents, and that's where that goes. But Paul, thank you so much. You touched on so many points and so much, and it was very concise and specific. It allowed us to get a lot in just over an hour or so, and certainly appreciative of everyone who participated and had their specific questions answered. And in a moment, we will formally end the meeting, but we'll be hanging around the virtual meeting room. I'll turn off the recording and we could just hang around. And Paul, you're welcome to stay around, as well as all of you, and you can unmute at that time. Well, you've been unmuted all day today, and have additional conversation. But just before we officially wrap up, I want to let you know who's visiting us and what's coming up over the next couple of weeks. Next Friday will be January 21st, and Coach Ed Samuel will be here. Cold calling and your job search. Ed will be talking about some really good techniques for reaching out and speaking with and cold calling people during your job search. It's something that a lot of people are a little hesitant to do. Sometimes introverts are hesitant to do that, which surprises me, because as an introvert, you like talking to just one person, not a bunch of people. So Ed will be here. Ed Samuel will be here next week, cold calling and your job search. The following week, the 28th of January, Hannon Isaacs will be here. He is an employment law attorney, and he'll be talking about the essential principles of employment law for workers and those in transition. So there are always laws and rules that change all the time, and Hannon will be here to talk with you from the perspective of an employment law attorney. And so if you're interested in learning about some of those rules and laws around, certainly do so. Come join us on the 28th. Other groups that we like to support, and we like to support all the groups, of course, but tomorrow morning, the Career Support Group will be meeting 8:30 in the morning. Lynn Williams will be presenting Beating the Applicant Tracking System. So if you're curious of how to get noticed and found using an ATS, or applicant tracking system, that's careersupportgroup.org. careersupportgroup.org. Just go to the website to get the connection info for tomorrow morning at 8:30. And then, of course, some of our cousin organizations, PSG of Central New Jersey meets on Mondays at 10:30 in the morning. And you can visit them on their website, their brand new website, psgcnj.biz, psgcnj.biz. And PSG of Morris County meets on Wednesdays at 9:30 in the morning. And they actually open the session about 8:30 if you want to hang out and chit chat with them. psgmc.org, psgmc.org. So that is what's coming up over the next week or two. So once again,
The Monday meeting for PSG of
Oh, it'll be Tuesday.
Central's on Tuesday. Yeah.
Yes, that's true. When there's a Monday holiday and Martin Luther King Day is this Monday, when it's a Monday holiday, PSG of Central New Jersey shifts to the Tuesday. Thank you, Charlotte Ann. Yep, thank you for that.
And if I might, this Monday, Morris County Executives in Transition will be meeting on Monday, even though it's a holiday, remotely from 10 to noon. And again, that's one of those groups that is a peer support group. So if you're interested, please reach out to me, and I'd be happy to get you the link for that meeting.
Thank you.
On Wednesday, PSG of Morris County will be having Mike Carr from D&B, advice from the other side of the table, as well as some dialogue about openings current at D&B.
Yeah, thank you, John. I've seen the program before. It's advice from the hiring manager's perspective, so you may be interested in learning a little bit about that. And since Paul did talk a bit earlier about the gig economy and working as a consultant, Monmouth County Workforce Development has a program on January 26th. It's a free program, How to Work as a Consultant in the Gig Economy. And so I did put that link at about 11:30 in the chat. And so you do have to register, but it's free. They just are keeping count. So that's January 26th at 10 o'clock in the morning. That's Wednesday the 26th. So if you're welcome to go to that as well. So as we look forward to programs over the next couple of weeks, and of course our weekend coming up, which I think will be a chilly one from what I understand, we'll look forward to hopefully seeing you very soon. If not in person, we will look forward to seeing you virtually. And until that time, I'll simply say, bye everyone.